Hi Sumi, I'm so excited about this crop top that I made. So this is an halter neck with cowl effect crop top. Yes, a sleeveless one at that. So I made use of a crepe fabric for this. Actually, I had remnant from a dress that I made. I'm not sure, but I don't think it was up to a yard. But of course, this depends on the size that you're working on. Depending on how open you want the armpit region to be, you can alter the pattern that we're going to be working on in this video. So if this looks like what you like to learn, then you need to see this video to the very end. Welcome to Vera Adams YouTube channel. Of course, my name is Veronica Adams Eze. So right here is pattern paper that I'll be using. I've gone ahead to draft the basic bodies. I have 17 inches for the half length. I already marked for that, and I'm turning the paper over so that we can also see that I've drafted the back of this top as well. So now that we also have 17 inches as the length of the back here, so we can go ahead to work to alter this pattern to what we want. So back on the front pattern, after taking 3 inches for the neck width, I went ahead to determine what I wanted after the neck width, and I think 1.5 inches is fine by me. So I went ahead to mark 1.5 inches. You can do this according to your preference. So from that part, I went ahead to connect right into the armhole, just as you see me doing here. But because I really feel that the last dress that I made was a bit open on the armpit, so I decided to come up from the chest line by 0.75 inches. But if you are actually okay with it exposing your armpit, this is fine. So after doing that, I went ahead to connect right, just as you're seeing me doing. So since I really don't want that on this top, so I'm going ahead to close up the dart. If you want that on yours, you can leave it. After closing up the dart, I'll go ahead to cut this front bodies out. Since we're working on altering this to give us a cowl effect, the neck depth does not matter. So that's why I didn't go ahead with the initial neck depth as illustrated on the pattern paper. So once this is done, the next thing is to try to create the cowl effect. I went ahead to mark about 6.5 inches from the top of this paper. So I'm going to roll a line to show this, and I'll go ahead to cut it out. Actually, you can maintain the chest line. If you maintain the chest line, it's still fine. So I'll cut this out, but not totally. Yes, because it's a lot easier if you don't cut it out completely. So here is the crepe fabric. I'm going to go ahead to fold it in such a way that I can accommodate the cowl effect that we're about to create on it. So I'm placing this fabric on fold, and I'll go ahead to bring in the pattern paper that we just cut out. Please note that the part of the fabric that was folded is where I'm placing the center of this pattern paper. So once I'll go ahead and pin the lower part of this pattern paper down so that we don't have any shifting. Then once that is done, we can go ahead and start adjusting the upper part, in which you can get the cowl effect. So I'll go ahead and spread that slash. Yes, and I think about 7 inches is okay if you don't want it to expose any cleavage. But here I'm doing 6 inches, so you can see that I have 6 inches. So at the point that I have 6 inches, I went ahead to pin the upper part down. So once that is done, I'll go ahead, and because I don't have a lot of fabric to work on, so that means I'll be creating like a facing for this. So I'm going ahead to connect from that neck width. You can see I'm connecting it right into the center of this fabric. I'm also going ahead to outline the armhole region. Yes, as you can see right here. On the pattern, I didn't had seam allowance, so I'm going ahead to add 1.5 inches for seam allowance right on the fabric. So I've gone ahead to connect it together, and here I'm cutting it out. At the arm region, I'm going ahead to add 1/2 inch, and I also had 1/2 inch to the top part, just as you're seeing me doing here. So now at that neck width, where the neck width started from, we're going to make a notch. This is very, very important. As we go on in the sewing, you understand why. So now that we're done with the front, we can move ahead to the back. So here's the back pattern. So since the back is a low back, depending on how low you want it to be, but first we have to create that 1.5 inches that we did at the front. So whatever you use for the front, make sure that you're using the same for the back. So I'm also going ahead to connect this right into the armhole, and here's what we have. Remember that we came up by a 0.75 inch because I didn't want to expose so much armpit. So I'm going ahead to also do the same. So whatever you do for yours, please, whatever you do for the front, make sure that you're doing the same for the back as well. So after this is done, I'll go and determine how low that I want. So I think 5.5 is actually fine for me. I don't want it to be too low. So I went ahead to mark 5.5 from the shoulder line, and I'm connecting it right into the new armhole that we created and right into the zipper allowance. So I've gone ahead to use marker pen to make it more visible. So once this is done, I'll also go ahead to close up the dart for the back. Like I usually say, if you're okay with that, you can leave it. So once I'm done with closing up the dart, I'll go ahead and start cutting out. Kindly take note that on this pattern paper, I've already gone ahead to add the zipper allowance as I've indicated right here. So I'll go ahead and cut the upper part of this. Now I can go ahead to notch the zipper point on the paper so that it will be easy for us to replicate same on the fabric. The next thing to do is to bring in the remnant of the fabric so that we can cut this. Note that this is going to be in 2 pieces because of the zipper that's going to be attached. So I'll go ahead and pin the pattern paper to the fabric. I'll also go ahead and add seam allowance to the back, the exact same thing that we did for the front. So now that we're done with the cutting for the back, here is the front piece. This is what it will look like at the end of this tutorial. So anyways, let's just get right into how to make this. Now I'll go ahead to cut the facing for this front part, and right here I'm using a lining, actually an upper lining. So I had to attach an interfacing, a soft one. Please note that if you have the exact fabric, you can go ahead and use the exact fabric without adding any interfacing. But because I'm using upper lining now, we all know how upper lining can be very annoying. So I went ahead to just add a bit of stability. Please, I do not recommend that you use this type of lining if you're making this for a client. Remember that I'm just making this for the sake of this tutorial. So I came down by, if you want to know the length of the facing, I just came down by about 3.5 inches away from the armhole. So that's what I did. So I'm notching the center of both the fabric and the facing. So I'm going to use the facing to turn the fabric. So I'm placing the 2 right side facing right side. I'm going to go ahead to pin, and I'm going to go ahead to start stitching right from the first notch to this second notch here. So remember that we placed the notch around that neckline width, so that is where it will stop from one to the other. So once we're done sewing that, you can go ahead to stitch around the armhole area just as I'm doing here. And once you're done with that, you can also stitch down to the end of this facing. But when you are stitching the end of this facing, make sure that you fold in so that on the right side it will not show the rough edges. I hope you understand this. So do the same for this other side as well. So here are the pieces for the back, the 2 pieces for the back. I'll go ahead to cut facing to be able to turn the upper part. So here are the 2 facings for the back pieces. I'm going to make a mark to indicate the lower parts because the upper and the lower part look similar. So to avoid mistakes, so I went ahead to do that. So I'll be placing right side of one piece to the right side of the other piece, just as you're seeing me doing here. I'll go ahead and bring in pins to hold it down to avoid shifting. Once this is done, I'll go ahead and run a stitch from the upper parts. I'll go ahead and run a top stitch right there, then come back and stitch on the sides, these 2 sides. Please make sure that when you're doing it, you fold this part upwards like this so that the rough edges are not visible on the right side. So I'll go ahead to repeat the same process for the second side as well, starting from the upper part, running in top stitch, then closing both sides while maintaining that the lower part is folded in. So here is what we have after I went ahead to do that. So now that this part is folded in like this, you can now go ahead to run a stitch on top just to secure it down. So I've gone ahead to do the same for the second part, and this is what it's looking like. So I'll take this to the ironing table to iron it out flat. So right here is the back piece. I've gone ahead to iron it out, and I've gone ahead to sew on that facing, the bottom of the facing. So this is what we have. So we're going to attach the two back pieces together at the zipper region. I'm using pins to hold this down. Then I'll take this to the sewing machine and run a loose stitch. We're running a loose stitch on this because we're going to have to loosen it up and attach a zipper later. So I've gone ahead to iron the front piece, and this is what it is looking like. So right now I'm going to turn this front piece inside out so that the wrong side is the one visible to us. This space right here is where the rope will be passing. So I've gone ahead to sew 2 ropes, and then I made it in such a way that we have one end closed and one end open. So the length I have here after sewing is 1.5 inches, or the width rather, the width is 1.5 inches, and the length is about 20 inches. You can make it as long as you want. So I'll go ahead and pass the rope inside. That means the rope will be in between the main fabric and the facing. So I'll pass it inside. Just watch the way I'm doing it, and I'll bring it to this edge. Remember that we have about 1.5 inch opening on the top itself. So once I pass it inside like this, I'm going to go ahead to pin it down. So I'm pinning it in such a way that I can run 1/2 inch stitch on it and it will hold it down. But you have to be very careful how you pass in the rope. Make sure that the wrong side of the rope is facing you. Yes, so that when you finish passing it inwards and pinning it down, the right side will be what you'll be seeing right here. So I've gone ahead to pass the second rope as well, and I'll take it down to the sewing machine and stitch it down. So this is what we have. See how neat it is looking after I went ahead to stitch it down. So right here is the part that we closed initially. So the essence of leaving the other side open is because it will be the part that will attach to these bodies. So at this point, the next thing to do is to bring in the back bodies so that we can align it with the front and go ahead and close it up on the side. So I'll go ahead and attach the back to the front piece, and I'll go ahead and use 1 inch to sew it down on the side. Once this is done, I'll also go ahead to run a stitch at the bottom, that's hemming the bottom. But to do that, you have to loosen a bit of the zipper area. So right now I've already gone ahead to do that. I've joined it at the side, and I've already gone ahead to hem the bottom with a stitch, and I've gone ahead to loosen the seam around the zipper area. So the final thing is to go ahead and attach zipper to this part, but I have an open and close zipper here so that it will be easy to wear and to just pull off. So you can go ahead also to use any zipper of your choice. So here is what it looks like after I was done. I hope that you did find this video useful. If you did, do not forget to give it a thumbs up by clicking on the like button, and if you are new to this channel, do well to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.